Good morning. My name is Mark Bonkowitz, and I have the privilege of being the moderator of today's panel discussion. We are excited about a new dimension being added to the Serra International Convention through today's panel discussion of former seminary rectors. Members of the laity want and need priests who are holy, joy-filled, and ready to be our shepherds in our parishes. That requires years of formation in seminaries that provide academic and theological studies rooted in the true teachings of the Catholic Church. Today's panelists are archbishops who have proven over time to have taken ordinary Catholic men and leading them through the process of formation to become priests who love our Lord Jesus Christ and serve his people with joy and single-mindedness of purpose. Because each of our panelists has been a speaker at our convention or a celebrant at Mass, and we desire to maximize the number of questions from you participants, we will forego a lengthy background on each panelist and simply state their current responsibility and where they were rectors. We will start at the far end of the table where we have Archbishop Emilio Burley from Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and he was rector at the seminary at the Agua Salientes, Mexico. Then we have Archbishop Eldon Curtis, Emeritus from Omaha, Nebraska, and he was the rector at Mount Angel Seminary in St. Benedict, Oregon. Then we have Archbishop Timothy Dolan from New York. He was rector at Kenrick Glennon Seminary in St. Louis, as well as the Pontifical North American College in Rome. And then we have Archbishop George Lucas from Omaha, Nebraska, who was the rector at Kenrick Glennon Seminary in St. Louis. Knowing that these fine archbishops are so deeply loved by all of us, let us welcome them all with a round of applause as we begin. We will start with introductory remarks from each panelist, and then we will move into our question and answer portion, and we will start with Archbishop Burley at the end. Introductory comments, please.
Echaron por delante al más menso. But you know, my English is not so well, and excuse me, but I say before, I hope the substitute of your imagination can help to translate. You know, I work for 12 years in the major seminary of my own diocese, Aguascalientes, but you know, many years ago. But always, you know, I believe the challenge always is to be very, very close to the students. I believe that is so important because Catholic Church exigencies are many, just to give time to the person for the maturity, you know, for human maturity. But you need to be very close to the students. For instance, we have almost 100 students in Yucatan in the major seminary. But we have 11 priests full-time for them, because it's very important that they are very, very close to them, accompanying, you understand what it means, to be very close, to accompany, to talk with them, to also to help them to reinterpretation, you know, the reinterpretation of the facts of their lives, because I believe it's very, very important. Even with this, we have difficulties, certainly, but I believe it's very important. Also, I like very much what Archbishop Dolan told us about the spiritual 24 hours on Thursday. praying for priests and praying for vocations. This is, between us, is a common to offer on Thursday the Holy Sacrament adoration. And I believe it's very, very important to insist and that the Serra Club support this idea in all the dioceses where we are working, because really I believe that the prayer, because vocation is a gift of God. Usually when the person say, oh, how lucky that you are a priest or that you are a bishop, I say, I answer. He called me. He called me. I am a project of Christ, but the project is his project. Me only, I was involved, and I say yes. And I say yes during these 43 years as a priest. But I believe very, very important that the person say, Serrans love to pray. And Serrans manifestly, openly, they are men and women of prayer. I believe that is very important. More than other things, that Serrans are men and women of prayer. That is very important because it's Jesus who calls us. We answer. These two remarks, I don't know if they help.
That's good.
I'll just address a couple of things. It was my privilege to have worked on the second edition and the fourth edition of the Program for Priestly Formation for the United States as one of the authors. And over the years, it's been a long time since I was rector of a seminary in Oregon. The other thing I want to say is this. It's my experience that seminaries have improved over the years. They've developed stronger as far as the academic program is concerned and as far as human formation is concerned, as far as pastoral formation is concerned. But I think one of the weaknesses of formation in the United States was the formation in spirituality. And that's one of the reasons when Father Gabuzda came to me and asked me if I would consider allowing a new program to be established here in Omaha, that's Institute for Priestly Formation, which you heard the three of them that are involved in this, Father Gabuzda and Father Horn and Kathy Kanavi. This past summer, we had 189 seminarians from all over the United States in this intense program for spiritual formation. I'm convinced that if we work at that, if we work at spiritual formation, then we're going to strengthen formation for priesthood in the United States. It's going to change the priesthood in the United States and strengthen it, and we have some very good years coming. I'm glad to have been part of that. Thank you.
Well, first, everybody, I'm honored to be with such distinguished panelists, all who've had very rich background in preparation of priests as seminary rectors. Archbishop Curtis, you're one of the patriarchs, and I look up to you very much as a rector. And because you were there in very difficult, when were you rector at Mount Angel?
I was there from 70 to 76.
70 to 76, critical times. So you've seen it all, and I knew that you were pivotal in the programs of priestly formation, which I think get better as they go along. And he's also been with Serra for so long, huh? He knew Blessed Junipero Serra. I don't know if you know.
I'm not that old.
And one of the things I think my brother former rectors will agree with me is that to be a rector of a seminary is a tremendous gift. And I found the 7 years that I was able to be rector of the North American College in Rome to be so good for me spiritually, because the seminarians called forth what was best in me. And they came with such noble ideals about the priesthood. And there was almost a unanimity in their zeal for just being the best priest possible. And I always marveled at how they continued to have such a kind of a dazzling, noble, almost boyish love and appreciation for the priesthood, even in the face of the fact that the priesthood has been so gravely tarnished in the life of the church and in our culture these past decades. But what they taught me is, of course, they were able to separate the priesthood from individual priests who may tragically sully the nobles and the ideals of priesthood. And they really, they sometimes would put me to shame in the thirst that they had for holiness and then the desire they had for the pastoral life of the church. Though we bishops somebody just told me a little story about a deacon who was only weeks away from his priesthood, and it's a story, not true. He was struck by lightning, and he died, and he went to heaven, and St. Peter said, "Now, deacon, you know, our job here is to make you happy. What do you need?" And he said, "Well, I was only a couple of weeks away from priesthood. Could I perhaps be ordained a priest?" And St. Peter said, "Oh, sure, no problem. We'll get back to you." So a week passed, 2 weeks passed, 3 weeks passed, a month, 6 months, a year. Finally, he went to St. Peter and he said, "Excuse me, St. Peter, but you promised that you would see that I was ordained a priest." And St. Peter sort of hemmed and hawed, and he said, "Well, the problem is we're having a tough time finding a bishop."
Sounds like Dante.
But I feel that way as I felt that way as a rector so very often as I would give conferences to the students or I would meet with them. You know, I thought, boys, you fellas and your ideal of the priesthood and in your quest for the priesthood at times put me to shame. And I found that as a bishop. I think Bishop Emilio, you were so correct. You were there, I know, Archbishop Lucas, and I don't know if you were there, Archbishop Curtis, for the installation of the new Archbishop of St. Louis, Robert Carlson. And he gave a who has a great reputation for vocations. And I was amazed. He gave a very brief homily. That amazed me. All right, and but in the line that got the most ovation from the people was when he said, remember, "I will never ordain a man a priest without knowing him well." And there was a great ovation, and I thought to myself, I wonder why that. I wonder what the reason for the people's reaction. But I think it strikes me that you know that the people of God sense how the thundering responsibility of priestly formation, and that a bishop would take that with the utmost seriousness, and that it wouldn't be a factory line, or that it wouldn't be that it would never be automatic or routine, but it would be such an intimately personal investment. So you're right, Bishop Emilio, that we would know our men well, and they inspire us. While, as we as rectors, though, I think would back this up, while respecting the integrity of the seminary. I admired you, Archbishop Curtis, when I was rector, and I don't know if you will recall, he was known for knowing his seminarians well. He was known as a great recruiter of vocations. And I had to call with some bad news about one of the seminarians, and I thought, oh, he's going to kind of like defend the guy. No. Right away he said, "That's why I send him there. You're to get to know him, you're to assess him, so thanks for telling me. What's our next step?" And so we always respect the integrity of the seminary system. As much as we bishops want to know our seminarians well, we respect very much. We want to let the seminary do its job. But those are, I guess, my introductory remarks about how they inspire us, they bring out what's best, and how indeed we need to get to know them. So thanks for that. Did you see these muffins? These muffins remind me of the Yankees. They're on steroids. Right?
So that's a hard act to follow.
What?
It's a great privilege for me as well to be on the panel with these other distinguished prelates and former rectors. Archbishop Dolan I've known for so many years. We're both from St. Louis, of course. A great place to grow up in the Catholic faith, a great place to be able to hear the call of our Lord Jesus Christ to the priesthood. So many people, as he already said, were so supportive of all of us in various ways. I'm more grateful for that all the time. I became rector at Kenrick Glennon Seminary in 1995, and I wasn't on track to become a seminary rector. I wasn't on the faculty. I was working in the chancery. The Vincentian Fathers had administered the seminary for the most part. Archbishop Dolan had been part of the administration in a few previous years, but they had been the rectors and formators, and they were no longer able to carry on that work. So they gave that news to then Archbishop Regali, and he had to find somebody to be the rector the next year. He asked me to do it, and I did it out of obedience. It's not the kind of job most people aspire to tell you the truth. As all have said, it's a tremendous responsibility, and somebody who thinks he's really worthy of it or up to it, he needs to have his head examined. But I also knew the importance of it, and had the same thought, that most seminarians had. It was the seminary to which I had gone myself, and I think any of us in the seminary always would have the thought occasionally, now, if I were in charge of this place, things would be different. And as we all know, when we get in positions of responsibility, that's not so easy. But I did, after a great deal of prayer and with the support of a lot of people, became the rector in the fall of '95. And what I noticed right away is just what others have said. The quality of the seminarians was something that really took me by surprise, and it was a great and very pleasant surprise. I told my contemporaries at that time, I was ordained then 20 years. I was 1975 model. And I told my contemporaries in the priesthood, they're not like us. It's not great grammar, but it was true. And I could say that with a great deal of delight and thanksgiving. Really amazed at the men who were responding to the call of the Lord. It was just at that time that the Pope John Paul II's exhortation, Pastores Dabo Vobis, was really being studied and kind of unpacked and interpreted for those of us involved in the work of formation. And it was a tremendous gift and a tremendous resource as he outlined the various aspects of formation that had to be integrated in any successful seminary and in the life of every seminarian. And really in the lives of priests and bishops ongoing after ordination. The particular insight of the Holy Father, I thought, was the basic importance of human formation, that the raw material of the priesthood is the man. That's the matter of the sacrament, you might say. And if you didn't have a healthy man, you weren't going to have a healthy priest. And so that became a big part of the work of seminaries, to focus on that, along with solid teaching in theology and solid spiritual formation, all of those things. We can't neglect any of them. And so it's one of the beauties, also the paradoxes of our time, I think, that we have these tremendously wonderful candidates being called to the priesthood, but they're coming out of a culture that's broken in many ways. And their personal experience, the experiences they've had coming to manhood have been very mixed. And they've received mixed signals in many ways from the culture, and sometimes even from those of us in the church. And so it's a big part of the responsibility of all of us in the church, but particularly those involved in formation. To help a man who is truly called by the Lord to be able to respond wholeheartedly, as I think he wants to do when he comes to the seminary, but to help him deal in a very honest way, sometimes through spiritual direction and confession, sometimes in a more open way with his peers and with other faculty members, with the areas of his life that still need healing and still need the kind of personal and human growth that the Pope has told us is so important. The Lord has done this in every age, called people from the culture in which they're living. Where else would they come from? They don't come from Mars. And so the Holy Spirit gives us what we need in every generation to make that good formation possible. But it's a particular challenge, but I just have so much admiration for the men in formation, those recently ordained that I know, who have been willing to face those challenges with good help from so many others, good resources, and have determined to follow the Lord wholeheartedly as holy and dedicated priests.
Thank you to each of our panelists for your introductory remarks, which have set the tone for today's panel discussion. It's obvious that we have a lot of joy on the part of these panelists. It's terrific. Now we're ready to move into the question and answer portion of our time period. Let me just quickly review the guidelines for questions and answers. There will be 2 mobile microphones being manned by Tim O'Neill and Kevin Cooper. Sherry, are you going to do it? Okay. So it'll be Sherry Brownrigg and Tim O'Neill. Those conventioneers who have questions should leave your seats and stand behind either one of them, and I will select the next person to ask a question. Now we're going to ask yourself to limit yourself to 1-sentence background statement and then a 1-sentence question. Now, I was raised in Catholic education, and in 4th grade, the Ursuline nuns taught us a question had a question mark at the end of it and a little raise in the tone of your voice, okay? So, this is not a platform for you to express your opinion. It's a question and answer session to tap into some great wisdom and joy, okay? That's the rules of this game now. So, go ahead and line up and let's have our first questions. Go ahead and start.
I'm Enos Trukey from the Bronx, New York, and I have the pleasure of having Archbishop Dolan in our presence now. My question, 2 of you touched on spirituality. I have found sometimes that some priests, they're good, but they don't emphasize the, when we're having benediction or anything, they don't believe that much in it for some reason. I think that's there's a necessity for more training. What do you do to teach them, besides all the other stuff? I know it's a lot, but the ceremony and the emphasis on the benediction and stuff like that.
Okay, so the question is, what are we doing to
What do we
train them
do
to really
at the
understand
seminaries? What do they do to train them?
training for benediction and others? So, Bishop Burley, would you like to answer that one?
Maybe I can speak to it while he's preparing. It's very much a part of life in the seminary these days, both the participation in Eucharistic adoration and with benediction, and then also the training of how to lead that celebration. Again, my own experience as rector, it was one of the things that the students really led me to a deeper appreciation of. I think after being ordained 20 years, I had a normal priest appreciation for the Eucharist and Eucharistic devotion, and to the Blessed Mother too, both of those areas. But the seminarians had a real hunger for that, and I think you find that in every seminary these days, a desire to do that in a very balanced way, and a desire to understand how to lead other people to do it too.
I would just like to make a brief statement. You heard the presentation by the Institute for Priestly Formation. Their point is to help seminarians fall in love with the Lord. It's that falling in love, it's being in love with Him and listening to Him. That's the kind of basis for the spirituality and the Eucharistic spirituality that you're looking for and that hopefully is going to take place.
Yes, and I think, I've heard many people say that, so you are right, Contessa, but I think the reservation that she expressed wouldn't be accurate for the priests now. As Archbishop Lucas mentioned, the priests ordained in the last 10 or 12, 15 years, they would have undergone a tremendous recovery of what you might call the arsenal of piety and devotion that is such an esteemed part of Catholic spirituality. So they would be superb on that. That would be something that we had recovered that perhaps our generation let go a little, or we're not raised in. So I would see that as I'm just amazed at how many of the students who would come in to say that their priestly vocation had been crystallized at Eucharistic adoration, or who would speak about their tender love for the Blessed Mother. Very interesting, in my 7 years as rector of the North American College in Rome, only 2 times did the students come to me to demand something.